welcome to another DSLR Life episode. I'm Nigel Bailey, and I thought it's about time that I did what I said I would do months ago, and that is to take a look at some of my equipment, and in particular I want to start with my main camera body, and that is this, the Nikon D800 digital SLR. This is a great camera. It is really robust. I've had this probably for about 2 or 3 years now. I've used this for some semi-professional use, for the occasional wedding, and this is a real workhorse. It's just incredibly robustly built, and it's made clearly for professional use. It's heavy, you know, it is a big camera. It feels very solid in the hand. Okay, so why did I get the D800? Well, before this I had a D300, and which was a DX crop sensor camera. But for a long time I had really wanted to upgrade to something that had a full frame, an FX camera in Nikon terms, and which is what this has. It has a full frame sensor. But one of the main reasons I picked up this camera body is it's a megapixel monster. This is a 36 megapixel camera, and if you're into landscape photography like I am, then having 36 megapixels, well, it's amazing. The amount of detail you get from this is just incredible. It's also amazing in terms of its abilities in low light photography. So I've used this for a number of events, very low light conditions, and just for picking up the kind of detail that you want to capture in low light, and for its dynamic range, particularly with things like stage lighting. It's just amazing. I think it's just a superb piece of kit. So particularly for photographing things like musical events, that kind of thing, where you've got a lot of different kind of stage lighting and changing lighting conditions. I know that the dynamic range on this camera is going to get me out of trouble pretty much every time. So it's a really great piece of kit. I love the controls on this camera. I love the way that it can be so quick to choose your shutter speed and your aperture control. And that's because in the Pro range of Nikon cameras, you have dials at the front and at the back, from which you can control the aperture setting and the speed, the shutter setting, quite separately. So with this kind of camera, with a digital SLR body like this, pro level body, because there are so many function buttons on the camera, it means you're rarely having to go through a menu, and if, like me, you shoot in manual mode all the time, changing the camera settings to those that you need for a particular shot is just incredibly quick. So as I change the aperture dial on the camera, up or down, you can see right in the center of that little top viewing panel there, you can see you're getting an indication immediately there as I change the dial of whether or not the camera, with its metering system in the particular settings at the time, has decided whether I am under or over exposing on my shot. And similarly, if I change the shutter speed here, you get exactly the same kind of readout. So here we go. So we've got aperture control at the front, we've got shutter control, shutter speed control at the back, and ISO is controlled by a combination of pressing this top button here and then the rear dial. You've got your shutter release here, on off switch for the camera, and then you've also got the video record button. If you want to change modes, which I must admit I don't tend to very often, but if I want to change modes, then I hold down the mode button, and dial the rear, move the rear dial, and that changes me between aperture priority, manual priority, shutter priority, and program mode. So as I say, normally that's going to be in manual mode. This LED, this panel on the top is also really useful for showing me things like, well, okay, so what are my things like my shutter speed settings, what's the battery status like, what's my aperture setting, what's my ISO, that's sort of particularly important. Also, am I shooting in RAW? Have I got that right, or am I stuck on JPEG? So this, as I say, this is the kind of the business end of the controls. I've also done something on the D800 here, which is really useful when it comes to focusing. You can't do this on a lot of cameras, but what I call back focus button. So normally when you come to focus with most DSLRs, what you would do is you would half press the shutter button, it focuses, and then a full press takes the picture. But what I've done with this one is I've set it up so that this button here, which is the AF on button, this button is used to focus the camera, and the shutter button just simply releases the shutter. It means that if someone else picks up my camera to use it, they're probably going to get really frustrated because they're going to get a lot of out of focus pictures. But what it does mean is that I don't have to constantly keep refocusing if I'm focusing on the same subject but I want to take a similar shot a number of times, or if I want to have continuous focus because the subject is moving maybe towards me or away from me, then having this button, control autofocus, is really handy. If I keep my finger pressed on it and I have the camera in continuous focusing mode, then it will track that object for me, and then when I'm ready to shoot, I press the shutter button. I haven't got to pre-focus because it's just doing it all the time. And again, if I want to keep it on locked focus, then if I've focused with the AF on button and then released it, it's just going to stay in that same focus position until I change it again, even if I press the shutter button. So that's a really useful feature. It's a bit counterintuitive, it takes a little bit of getting used to, but I think it's worth doing. Okay, what else have we got on the camera here? At the other end of the top of the camera, we have these 4 buttons here. And these allow you, together with, in combination with the dials on the other side here, to change the quality basis of the image you're taking. Is it in RAW or is it in JPEG, fine, or low resolution, etc. Your bracketing button, your white balance, and your ISO controls. So all of those work in combination with these dials on the other side. And then also on this ring that goes around the button, you can, when you press this button in combination with the ring, then move the ring to a different release mode. So that's single shot, continuous low speed, continuous high speed, and then here you've got that's the quiet mode, which frankly isn't really very quiet at all, and I almost never use it, bit of a waste of time. You've got the timer mode, self-timer mode, and then you've got mirror up. Most of the time I would have this in single shot mode. I don't do a lot. Then on the back of the camera, then we've just got, if you're a Nikon user, you'll be familiar with this control system, but you've got your main menu button here. And that just reveals for you the menus. I'll just go up and down our menus here using the scroll feature. If I want to go into a menu, go in that way, and then you've got all your sub menus. I'm not going to do that, go through all of those today. That might be the subject of an entirely separate video sometime. So we've got this is just for turning the menu on and off. We then have a lock button. Very rarely use that, but if I've got a picture I really want to make sure I do not lose, then that's the lock button if I wanted to use it. And then you've got your kind of normal controls you'd expect to see for magnify up and down, and your OK button here. Down the other side at the bottom here, you've got your live view and your camera to video switch controls here. So at the moment it's in camera mode, as in stills mode, and then switch it to there, and then we're into video mode, and I'm using video more and more at the moment. So switch back to camera mode, and then this is the live view button, and you'll see there that that instantly brings us into a view of what you can see through the lens, and similarly live view mode on video. Okay, as a landscape photographer, another feature that I really like on this level, the pro level series of Nikon cameras, is that when it comes to the viewfinder, it also has this little screen thing here that goes over the viewfinder. I don't know if you can see that when I flick that, then it has an internal cover that comes over the viewfinder, so that I don't get light leaking in if I'm doing a particularly long exposure, and that's another really useful little thing. On the side of the camera here, we've got some input and output things. So at the top we've got the microphone, got HDMI, sorry, not HDMI, USB 3, that's USB 3 output there, and then we've got the mini HDMI output here if I want to do a live output to a video recorder, for example. We've got a microphone in, and then we've also got a headphone out there, and then there's another little hole there. I've no idea what that is. I might have a look. It might just be a screw hole, but I'll have a look that up sometime. Obviously you've got some pretty robust things here for holding a strap on. I don't use those because I use a Black Widow strap, which is absolutely amazing. Might do a separate review on that sometime. On the front of the camera here, we've got the focus mode selector. So at the moment it's in autofocus mode. Switch it to there, it's in manual mode, and then it's got a button in the middle, and if you press that, then in combination with the control dials, it allows you to change some of the features of each focus mode. So is it in aerial mode, is it in spot focus mode, etc. So that's a really useful button to have as well. This is just your lens release, the on camera flash release there, and then there's a flash button here, which again in combination with the dials allow you to change various features in terms of the on-camera flash. Okay, so we're nearly there when it comes to the controls. There's one or two other controls on this side of the camera in terms of programmable function buttons and the preview button. So that's useful, the preview button, if you want to see what sort of depth of field you've got when you're shooting. So normally when you're focusing, in order or framing a shot, in order for you to be able to see sufficiently for the camera to be able to do all of its metering, etc., and its focusing, it would put the aperture right as wide as possible, just to let lots of light in. But the preview mode then will, if you're using a smaller aperture than the maximum aperture, it will effectively then reduce the aperture to the level that you can actually take the shot at, and that then enables you to preview things like your depth of field. Then lots of the buttons on the camera are programmable, and although I have to confess I don't do a lot of that, other than the one I mentioned earlier about the focus button here, the sort of pre-focus button. So those are most of the controls, and I think that's probably enough for now. So we'll leave it there for this particular video, and next time what I might do is just go into a little bit more detail when it comes to how I then use the controls in order to take to take a shot as efficiently as possible. Okay, we'll see you next time. Bye.